So I just did a video on The Little Mermaid, but Disney released some books to go along with the remake coming out soon, and I wanted to comment on some of the information revealed in them, so consider this video a supplementary to the previous one I did. There's an image going around on Twitter that people are discussing from the novelization of the live-action remake. I don't know if this book is going to be exactly the way they're going to do it in the movie. We'll have to wait and see on that. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the case though. They have confirmed they're making changes. Anyway, the climax of the original Little Mermaid involves Eric stabbing Ursula with a sunken ship, who then gets struck by lightning and explodes. But according to this, they're going to replace Eric with Ariel in this scene. I'm assuming they're doing this because they think it's more empowering to have Ariel kill Ursula instead of Eric, but I personally don't think this change was necessary. Like I said in my previous video, both Eric and Ariel are able to rescue each other after Ursula gets the trident. Ariel attacks her, but Ursula throws her off, and then Eric throws a harpoon at Ursula, so she switches her focus to him, but Ariel saves him again by grabbing her and causing her to misfire, which hits Flotsam and Jetsam, killing them both. This of course enrages Ursula, causing her to target Ariel specifically, which is why she ended up at the bottom of the whirlpool. Ursula's pretty much ignoring Eric at this point. She wants revenge, which is what gave Eric the chance to impale her in the first place. So are they going to have Eric kill Flotsam and Jetsam this time? Or does Ariel have to do everything? There's kind of been this attitude, especially surrounding female characters, that they can't need help, otherwise they're weak and damsels in distress. Never mind that Ariel's been very active this entire story, from facing off with the shark at the beginning, rescuing Eric, killing Flotsam and Jetsam, but that gets overlooked now because Ursula's attacking her. It's okay to need help, and one person can't do everything all the time. It's a good thing to have someone have your back. It kind of feels like they're doing what they did with the live-action Mulan. In the original, she struggled to fit in and meet her family's expectations, much like Ariel, but through her grit, determination, and problem-solving skills, she was able to overcome any challenge that came her way. However, in the remake, they made her overly competent in practically everything. This was supposed to be inspiring, but it really just undermines Mulan's character. She never needs help, and she's so naturally gifted that she never struggles or needs to train. It's almost like she's above all that, and it feels like they're doing that again with Ariel. And sidelining Eric, I don't really know if that's the best message to send because it kind of comes off as you shouldn't need to ask for help, and if you can't do everything on your own, then you're not a hero and you're lesser for it. That could just be my interpretation. Again, we have to wait for the movie to come out. I'm just saying. People bring up that in the Broadway version of The Little Mermaid, Ariel's the one to ultimately defeat Ursula. Although they changed the circumstances for the stage production, there are certain limitations when performing on a stage, and the climax in the movie just doesn't translate realistically. They can't really have a whirlpool and a sunken ship rising from the depths, so they changed it to breaking her conch shell defeats Ursula, which is a little anticlimactic, but it works for a stage show. There's also a pretty big difference from a mermaid smashing a conch shell against the ground and a mermaid steering a ship. This just kinda comes off as goofy. In Part of Your World, Ariel sings about how limited she feels as a mermaid, and she wants to be able to walk and dance the way humans can, and she wouldn't be able to get far on land with just her tail, and yet somehow here she's able to prop herself up and steer the ship, despite the fact that she has fins. How is she standing there? On top of that, she doesn't have the knowledge to sail. Again, something she talked about in Part of Your World, how she wanted to gain knowledge from the humans. Maybe they add a scene where she's taught how to sail? Since they're adding practically another hour onto the film, I guess that could explain it. But her being a mermaid steering the ship still doesn't make any sense. Of course, viewers always need to suspend their disbelief when watching movies, like mermaids existing to begin with, but at the same time, these movies have to stay within their own logic, otherwise they could end up breaking that suspension of disbelief. Like mermaids exist but they can't stand on land, so if Ariel's able to steer a ship, it kinda ends up breaking that submersion, as opposed to smashing a shell. She has arms, she can do that fine. Admittedly, I don't think the stage show is that relevant to begin with, considering the fact that this is an adaptation of the 1989 movie and not the stage show, but that's just my opinion. They are going with the kaiju Ursula, which I think is the right call. That is a really cool scene. I think this moment was important for Eric, and I don't agree with taking it away from him. Ursula spent all this time stalking Ariel, and came up with this contract that she believed would be impossible to fulfill. Also, she could take over the ocean, but when she realizes Ariel is close to completing it, she panics, and decides to take matters into her own hands by disguising herself as a human called Vanessa, and then puts Eric under a spell to force him to marry her against his will. She uses him as a puppet, and speaks through him to make them put on a wedding ceremony immediately, and she forces him to say "I do" while they're getting married. Eric is totally unaware during all of this, just staring off blankly the entire time, because despite all the chaos, he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't even know he's getting married right now. As a prince, he's been pressured into getting married for a while, while, but all this time he's been adamant on wanting to get married for love, and he's been standing his ground on this topic, even when everyone else is telling him that shouldn't be a priority. Eric doesn't just want to get married for the responsibility in it. This is going to be his life partner and queen, and he wants a real relationship in that, and he should have the choice. But Ursula is just brainwashing him into doing her bidding, and imagine the power she could have as queen of the land. She would get the trident from Ariel failing to fulfill the contract. Since Eric is under a spell, she's in charge of the kingdom. She could probably take over the world. It's mostly ocean anyway, and she would have the power and influence to do it. Luckily that didn't happen, but it was because of Ariel and Eric. Ursula is Eric's villain too. She was using him as a pawn from the beginning, like in the contract with Ariel, and then decided to just force him to marry her. That's just messed up. I find it ironic that they're changing the lyrics to Kiss the Girl because they're worried about people interpreting it as he's forcing himself onto Ariel, when A, that's not at all what's happening, and B, Eric is the victim of Ursula forcing herself onto him. I just don't think they're being fair to Ariel or Eric. They're insinuating that he's a creep and that Ariel can't consent because she's mute, or implying that Ariel is weak for not being the one to impale Ursula, when they're both victims in this situation. But they work well together. The movie's not that long, but it does a good job at establishing their relationship. They have a lot in common, they enjoy each other's company, and Eric basically falls in love with Ariel twice. Obviously there was his infatuation with her after she saved him, but he was also putting her on a pedestal, and mostly focusing on her voice. But thanks to Ursula, she lost her voice, so he ends up getting to know her for her, and falls in love with her even without the voice. He was even willing to give up on his dream girl for her, but then it turned out she was his dream girl after all, and Ursula tried to tear them apart, and they worked together and supported each other to defeat her. And I don't really like it when they nerf one character to prop up another. Again, we'll have to wait and see exactly how it's handled in the remake. I wouldn't put it past them though. Those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you agree with this change, or do you think it's not necessary too? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Bandito Bane, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia XV Legend, Hunter Rose, Dashhound, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Miranda Sinistra, Butcher7 Actual, Felix Spam, Soundboy00, Owen Wildish, Player Zero, Kitsune Fiora, Lucas Geist, Lil, Data Dine Executive, and Jay Draws. Thank you all so much for your support. If you want to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. You can also support the channel by leaving a like on this video and subscribing. It helps us out a lot and it's free. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way, and a link to that will be in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone!